Hello, it's Basic Folk, where we have honest conversations with folk musicians. It's Cindy Howes, and welcome. Hope you're doing great. Today on the podcast, very pleased to have Jocie Adams, the very talented multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter, magical human being who currently fronts Arc Iris and previously has been in the Low Anthem. I will tell you what we talk about in just a bit, but first let's thank our sponsors for Basic Folk. Basic Folk is brought to you in part by Tina and Her Pony, a queer duo bringing traditional Appalachian music and vocal harmonies into the 21st century. Visit tinaandherpony.com. This episode of Basic Folk receives support in more ways than one from motivational life coach Janet Forrest, who helps individuals see their own potential, overcome obstacles, and move forward. Visit janetforrest.com and mention Basic Folk. You'll receive 25% off your first month of coaching. First time I met Jocie Adams was when she first joined the Low Anthem, the Providence, Rhode Island kind of weird experimental folk group where she first started playing clarinet and started to eventually move from instrument to instrument to instrument. And then she started singing in that band and writing songs. And then after a while, she decided to venture out on her own and start Arc Iris, which if you listen to Arc Iris, they're not like super straight ahead folk, but they definitely have some folk elements to what they do. They're very interesting, kind of like a Florence and the Machine, David Bowie, St. Vincent type of thing with definitely like a theatrical thing going on. They're visually stunning. Jocie will often wear a gold bodysuit with like stuck-on jewels on her face, and she's definitely puts on a stage show. The last time I saw Arc Iris, she came out of this like large rectangle-looking thing that clearly was a vagina, and she was sort of artistically coming out of it on stage. So it was pretty incredible. Definitely recommend an Arc Iris live show. I've seen them live a handful of times, and they've gotten like so great. They've always been great, but they've just like reached this point of like performance perfection where it's just entertaining. The songs sound great. Anyways, I digress. So Jocie and I talk about her growing up. Her dad was I don't want to say he was a NASA guy, but he was like he worked on the Hubble telescope. So we talk about their relationship and also Jocie's clarinet playing and her experience and background in classical music. It's a very interesting conversation. She is not your typical musician. She's really great and happy to have her on the podcast. And we're going to take a listen to an Arc Iris song before we get into the podcast today. This is from their latest album called Icon of Ego, and the song we're going to hear is If You Can See Me. Thanks for coming to talk to me.
It's my pleasure.
I'm going to ask you about a lot of the span of your life. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay.
It's been a while since I had an interview, so let's just cover it all.
All right, yeah. When you were growing up, you went into physics. Tell me about your experience with like the physics and science when you were a kid.
When I was very little, I was drawn to a lot of things, but my dad was home a lot when I was little, and my dad is an aeronautical engineer. So, by a result of that is just like I'm hanging out with my dad.
What does that mean, an aeronautical engineer?
It means he worked on space stuff and worked on plane stuff.
Did he work for NASA?
Well, indirectly. So he worked at a place called Draper, which is part of MIT, and then they would get hired out by places like DARPA and NASA and stuff like that. So for NASA, he worked on the control system for the Hubble Space Telescope, which is pretty cool.
Whoa, that is cool, yeah.
It's definitely the most cool thing that I know that he's done, but I'm sure he's done cooler things that I just don't understand or know. Because if you go to try and read one of his papers, it's all gibberish unless you're a genius.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, talk a little bit more about your connection with, like, what drew you to science. You were hanging out with your dad. Was that basically it, that you enjoyed spending time with your dad, and then you liked what he was doing?
I think so. I mean, I think I really like a lot of things. So I think, in my older age, I know how much I love to write and how much I love poetry and reading and all these different things that I didn't prioritize when I was little as much, because I think I was really predominantly hanging out with my dad. And not that my mom wasn't there, she was totally amazing and totally there and so wonderful, but when I came home from school, my mom was still working, and so I would hang out with my dad and we would do stuff like build little radios and, like, I don't know, he had a lot of weird computers, old computers, and he had, I forget what it was called. Maybe it was called Logic. There was some computer program that he had that was like a really basic computer programming thing for kids that you could make little animations and stuff. And I don't know. That was his world, and I was his world. So
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I'd like to come back to that. I have a question about your gear later. I think maybe that ties in with that. But I'd love to hear about the clarinet. Is that your first instrument?
Well, actually, I played piano for a little bit before that, and I wanted to play the cello, but when I got to the age that you get to choose your string instrument at my school, the cello section was already full. So I played viola for a year, which I didn't like as well as the cello, and then decided to switch to clarinet. But I wonder if I had gotten one of those cellos to begin with, I probably would have ended up playing cello, which is just different. But I love clarinet, and yeah, I took it really seriously when I was a kid and played all the time.
It's so great to see you in Arc Iris and you're in your like gold bodysuit and you just like pull out your clarinet. I don't know if you still do that very often, but it seems like not very typical to see the clarinet in like a space rock band. It's great.
That was fun. I don't do it anymore, but not because I don't like it, just because we have so much stuff and it's gotta cut some stuff off the stage.
So let's talk about the guitar. When did you come to the guitar?
Not until super late. I think the first time I really started playing guitar with any intention was in the Low Anthem. There was a blues song that we played, and I don't know, you remember the Low Anthem, how it was kind of like, okay, we want this thing, figure it out. I feel like I was kind of like a figure it out guy. Like, we want, like, or we'd be like, oh, it'd be nice to have trumpet on the song, and then it would be like, everyone's looking at me like, figure it out.
Like Jocie, figure out how to play the trumpet?
Mm-hmm. And so we had this blues song, and I think Ben played drums and Jeff played bass, and I played electric guitar, a solo. So it was like, I mean, nothing fancy, but I remember just being like, this is very daunting. I'm playing this instrument. Like people that play it so much in the world of, like, if you play a couple notes on trumpet, you can get away with like playing 2 notes correctly in tune and it's fine and whatever. But if you're trying to play the guitar in a world where that's people's expertise, I remember being like, oh, this is bad. So that was really the beginning of me learning how to play the guitar. And To be honest, I've always really seen guitar or used guitar functionally. I've never really like gotten into it as a main instrument kind of thing. I mean, I use it all the time now in Archiris, but it's not like I was a 17-year-old kid shredding on the guitar. I was, playing the clarinet and I don't know.
That's still very impressive that you're able to pick it up and solo like pretty early on. Don't sell yourself short there, Joss.
Okay.
So I read this great quote. Someone called your voice the vocal equivalent of wind chimes and sunlight.
Oh, that's
lovely.
So nice.
How did you develop your vocal style, and what is your relationship with your voice?
Interesting question. I didn't start singing until well after college, so it took me a long time to figure out what my voice was, and I think in saying that, to realize that your voice is your voice, and you just have to use the thing that you have and not try to. I went through a lot of different phases with the Low Anthem where I tried to sound like this person or tried to sound like that person. I mean, I always sounded like me to other people, but in my world, I was trying to, quote, fix it. And I think at some point, I kind of just tossed that away and take a lot of the phrasing and the musicality that I put towards my singing. I definitely take all from my clarinet playing. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, talk more about that. That's interesting.
Well, just in clarinet's a single voice instrument. It uses breath. It follows phrasing. I use vibrato in clarinet. I use a lot of the same kind of vibrato in my singing, which is not a normal kind of vibrato, not a normal singing vibrato. I use both, but that kind of more like the, quote, Joni Mitchell vibrato that you hear that's like a longer vibrato is a lot from my clarinet playing.
Like a good example of the Joni Mitchell vibrato would be Blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. She does it pretty hardcore.
Yeah. Song. Although she also does a whatever that.
And that's not vibrato?
Not vibrato.
Oh.
Yeah, this kind of slow vibrato that's very controlled and volume rather than pitch. That's like all from my clarinet playing. And
that's so cool.
Yeah. Also, I would say that when I first started playing with the Low Anthem, we also played with Anais Mitchell, and I noticed that her singing was really similar to my clarinet playing. And that was an inspiration in terms of how it can directly apply. Like her phrasing and the way that she kind of pushes and comes in and out of phrasing. I mean, she's a little more in, out with her phrasing, but
all I can think of is that song where she sings like in and out.
Yeah, actually, that one's a good example where she really follows the phrase through in a way that I think a lot of folk or I don't know, a lot of singers don't do as much. But not anything here or there. It's just different. She was definitely an inspiration in terms of seeing how it could apply or hearing her sing and being like, oh, it's like very similar to my clarinet playing. I could use my clarinet playing as a model for my singing.
So interesting. Is this okay to talk? Do you have a slight lisp?
Yes.
Is that okay to ask about that?
Yeah.
Okay. You have like a very slight lisp. And it kind of comes out in your music sometimes, and I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Have you always had it?
I actually call it the clarinet lisp. I think from playing clarinet so much, it actually changed the shape of my mouth and gave me a little bit of a lisp.
When you speak and when you sing.
Insane.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And the more I'm playing clarinet, the more the lisp comes out. I've noticed it is what it is.
Oh my God. So you haven't been playing the clarinet in Archiris, so do you find it's not, the lisp is sort of like dull?
It went down a little bit, and then I started playing a lot in my free time, and now it's back, like definitely back.
How do you feel about it?
I don't really think about it much, except for when I'm listening back to recordings, and I'm like, wow, that's a lisp.
Do you know any other clarinet players so that's happened?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it. Probably not. It's probably an individual thing where whatever my mouth was shaped like originally, and then kind of, I'm sure it's shaped the same, but if my teeth moved a little or something the way I hold my mouth because of it. Something weird.
Play it so hard.
I play it so hard.
Okay, stage fright.
Oh.
Yeah, right? What has been your journey with stage fright?
A long one. When I started with the low anthem, I trembled when I was on stage. I mean, I was terrified. It was terrible. It took a long time to get more comfortable there. And I think even throughout my time in the low anthem, I think I never really fully got comfortable. It wasn't really until this new, and I still have a little bit of stage fright, but I always say it's better to be nervous than to be bored. But I think that, things like the gold leotard actually help. Like, you're sort of becoming another thing when you go on stage, and you get to almost be more like an actor than than having to expose yourself like those people that I used to see when I went to Passy when I was a kid, where it's really just them playing their music on stage, naked, singing their song, which is clearly about themselves, Instead of doing that, you can kind of create a scene and a world and a fantasy or something that then you can earnestly but play a part of.
I do have a couple of questions about the low anthem before we get into talking about Arc Iris. With the low anthem, what drew you to want to work with them in the first place?
Ben Miller and we had the same composition professor in college, so I spent a lot of time with him. Our classes, I think, were 3 hours long, and I played clarinet, and I got a note on my door at my house one day that said, come over to wherever they were living and play some clarinet whimsies. I'm like, okay, cool, that sounds fun. Pick up my clarinet, I go over there, and I show up. All the doors are closed everywhere except for in the kitchen, and there's like whiskey. I don't know, I forget, 2 whiskey shots per person set out on the table, and I'm thinking, this isn't what I signed up for, but okay, I'll go down this road. We'll see what this ends up with. And then so, we hang out for a while, and I'm like, this is sort of strange. Not really what I was expecting, but fine. I like hanging out. Ben is fun. Jeff is fun. I think Lenny might have been there. And then we went down the hallway, and he opened up the door, and there's a lyric sheet and a vocal microphone. And I really had never sang before, like ever, ever, ever. And so I understood what the whiskey shots were for.
To entice you to try to sing.
And then it ended up on that the What the Crow Brings record. And
such a beautiful record.
Yeah, that was how it started.
So I'm sure like you had so many different types of experiences in the low anthem. And this might be like a huge question to answer, but what do you think you learned about yourself from being in that band?
Oh my gosh, so many things. So many things. It definitely, overcoming stage fright, huge. Learning to sing, huge. Learning about, we used to play folk songs or traditional music all the time, just like hanging out, playing traditional music. I think that really influenced my idea of how music was made, because before that I was playing classical music, so it's very formal. You play a piece and it's written down, and so improvising, which I did a little bit of before, but not really. And then the just kind of jumping into stuff where you don't really know what you're doing, like singing a song, learning it on the fly, doing, all of that was really fulfilling. I also learned a lot about myself, just having to work that closely with 2 people for a really long time. You have to learn how to be better. You have to be a better person, or it just doesn't work.
And then why did you decide to leave the band?
Ultimately, we were working on Island for, I think, 3 or 4 years before I left the band, and Well, I felt a few things were happening. Ben wasn't really that stoked about clarinet playing in general anymore, which was a little sad. I think that he had a lot of ideas about how he wanted that record to go, and my ideas were not aligning with his ideas at all. And so we were just having a really hard time collaborating, and I wasn't really I wasn't really enjoying the music, which I love Ben's songwriting. This is not a general statement. I wasn't feeling like connected to that record, and certainly not the process of making that record.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I wanted to, well, I think I was ready to start playing some of my own songs. I had been bringing them to the band, to Low Anthem, for a while, and not probably as proactively as I could have, just out of feeling like not worthy or something like that.
Like, but this is Ben and Jeff's band?
Well, this is something that they've been doing for a lot longer than I have, so how could I possibly, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, in terms of, like, I definitely felt very much a part of that band, like, in terms of arranging and being just a critical listener, and in terms of songwriting, I didn't feel like it was an open place for that for me. And I had been writing a lot of songs and enjoying that, and so I guess I decided, the combination of all things, I decided that I would try breaking out on my own and having my own band.
In Arc Iris, so I'm so interested in this band. I love the origin of the name. It's Arc Iris means rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you choose that name?
I think at the time I had been, like I just kind of described it, I was having a little bit of a hard time and feeling like I was maybe a little overshadowed or something. Not by anybody's fault, it just was. And so I saw it kind of like the rainbow is the thing that comes out at the end of the storm, when everything kind of opens up.
Oh, yeah. When you started Arc Iris, I found this quote: "As that transformation began to take place, I found a lot of pieces of myself that had been tucked ever so slightly out of sight." So what were those pieces, and why do you think you hadn't been accessing them?
I think I hadn't been accessing them just out of fear. I think that Arc Iris is a space for me where it's like a playful space. The Low Anthem's not really a playful space. Arc Iris is like, you do what you want. We like, I think we always had rules where we would try everybody's ideas, no matter how dumb they were, just to see if it worked or if some other idea might come out of it. And you wear silly costumes, and you just kind of have fun with ideas and trying stuff, and try not to be judgmental about it. Try not to limit yourself by judgment. And that definitely had played a huge role in my opening up and feeling like I could really be myself.
I want to know about what kind of like outside forces are influencing Arc Iris's image, because it's like I love it so much. Like, it's like I can't decide whether it's like sci-fi or fantasy or like, I don't know. I was trying to think of like when you were in the Low Anthem, it was like Kevin Costner's Waterworld. Like that band was like the band in residence on Waterworld. And I was trying to think of like what fantasy movie like Arc Iris would be, and I guess like maybe The Labyrinth. But I don't know.
Good choice.
Yeah, thank you. But tell me about the aesthetic of Arc Iris, and particularly I want to talk about your stage persona as well, and those golden bodysuits and the and the jewelry, and basically like what the overall meaning is behind the image of the band. how you created it?
I think that it's really been something that we continue to tune up. I think when we first started, like I said, it was really a free-for-all. Like, anything goes, everything's great, we're just trying stuff out, we're having fun. And I think now, in terms of like it being stylized, we definitely have tuned up the image. But the gold leotard really was, I mean, I think that at the time I just felt like our music was a little bit challenging, for lack of a better word, because I'm sure there's a much better word than that. I hate that word, but I found that...
How about freaky?
Freaky. A little bit freaky. And I thought that, like, just going on stage with my person clothes and playing this music wasn't allowing people to step into a space where they were ready for something that wasn't just me playing a guitar and singing normal songs.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea of it really was to try and, like, push the world of not just the stage, but the whole venue. Kind of, you come in and you feel like, okay, something different is happening here. And then maybe, hopefully, your mind can shift and be a little more open to seeing things without, like, that layer of judgment that I was talking about. Because, of course, if you see somebody wearing, well, maybe I'm wrong, but the idea was you see somebody wearing a gold leotard and you think, well, they're not taking themselves, like, they're not, like, trying to fit the mold. Let's say that.
Mm-hmm. This is going to be different.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm interested in knowing about, like, your level of comfort when it comes to, like, wearing the gold leotard and the creative costumes on stage and, like, in photo shoots, and kind of creating this, like, fantastical image of yourself. And is it ever weird to you to, like, use your physical self so much in the theme of the band? And are people making assumptions about you or your music because of the image?
That is an interesting question. I'm positive that lots of people passed tons of judgment on my gold leotard and had tons of ideas about what it meant and why I was doing it they thought about it a lot more than I did. I was just like, I'm going to do something different. I saw the gold leotard and I was like, this is perfect. But in terms of, I don't know. I think that I have always enjoyed, that's just a form of play for me. It's just like being a little kid and running around and making weird stuff.
Did you have a gold leotard when you were a kid?
Well, I did ballet, so I had a lot of leotards.
Really funny face. Listeners, you can't see Jocie's face right now. It's very funny.
So many.
On stage, you seem like this, like, mystical, badass alien superhero who, like, lives on this, like, high-minded plane. And not to say that you're not, like, on a high-minded plane, but in person, you're, like, very down-to-earth, very funny, very easy to talk to, like, very charming. Seemingly, like, kind of not necessarily, like, opposite, like, one's night and one's day, but how much do these two people have in common?
Oh, I think a lot, because in the enjoyment of, I mean, first of all, thank you for all those kind compliments, but enjoyment of general life and just constantly trying to be as present as possible. It's the same thing that I'm doing on stage. It's just I'm present in this music that is pretty mysterious and pretty, I mean, it's strange, but it's what'd you call it? Freaky.
Freaky.
It's freaky, but it's freaky in a way that is extremely thoughtful and really deep and has so many layers of meaning. And being present in that just means that I think the more that I embody all of the ideas that I'm trying to get across lyrically, and the feeling or the emotion of the musical aspect of things, the more maybe freaky I seem. I don't know. Or what was the space?
Oh, mystical badass alien superhero?
Yeah, maybe that's just a byproduct of the music that we're making and how I feel inside of it.
It's lovely. Joni Mitchell, Arc Iris did the Blue Reimagined album. How do you feel connected to Joni Mitchell?
Oh, Joni Mitchell, I didn't really know about until college. When I heard her the first time I heard Case of You, I remember because a friend of mine played it for me in her dorm room, and I was like, what? And then actually I proceeded to try to learn that song on guitar, which I didn't. So I suppose I did play that song on the guitar very poorly in college before I tried to play in Little Anthem. But I think in Low Anthem she was always there and always very meaningful, but as I moved into the world of Arc Iris, she became so much more meaningful to me, just in, somebody to look up to, like, wow, she did this when it was mostly guys. She was completely not appreciated as much as she should have been. Her songwriting is insanely good. Her sense of harmony is insanely good. Her sense of arrangement is insanely good. I don't know. She just was such a unicorn and completely, I feel like, overshadowed by all the men around her, and she didn't let that stop her. And I love, we have in our show that we have this intro that we do that quotes her, or is a sample of her saying, if you don't change, they'll get tired of you. You have to change. That's just something that she said in a CBC interview, which I just think is like the most beautiful thing, because her constant exploration is a lot of what kept her from being as, I mean, she's still huge, but as huge as somebody like Bob Dylan, or Bob Dylan changed, but not really, or Leonard Cohen, or I guess Leonard Cohen wasn't that huge, but I can't think of it. But you know what I'm saying.
The Rolling Stones?
Yes, for example.
You heard one, you heard them all.
Yeah. Yeah, Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen are good examples because they did change. In fact, Leonard Cohen, I think, really tried to be hip with the times as he moved through. But she really, I mean, she took it to a whole nother level, and it was just exploration of all of music history. It wasn't just like, oh, here's a new like synth sound that we're using this in the 90s, It was like, oh my gosh, here's this whole new world of harmony that I'm going to use on this record. Here's like this kind of new tuning I'm going to use on this record. Here's this. I just feel like she really, if that was her mantra, she did an amazing job of constantly exploring, constantly finding new amazing musical worlds to live in, and blazing new pathways for tons of musicians to come.
How did it feel to reimagine and morph such sacred songs?
I know when we started doing it, we're like, we're not worthy, but I enjoyed it so much. It made me smile every time we played it, and I thought, that's really, I'm not trying to be as good as Joni Mitchell, just trying to do something meaningful and hopefully bring her music. I mean, if all goes well, I could bring even her music to some young people who don't even know it, which is definitely did happen, and I feel really, cool. Really grateful for that.
Yeah. So 2 words that I feel like I found this, I feel like the questions I'm asking you are like, how dare you fuck with Joni Mitchell? But that's like not my, I don't want you to think that's my MO, but so it seems as though you knew going into the Joni project that it was going to be bold and it was going to be polarizing, right? Okay. So explain how so, and also maybe can you tie that into how you feel about taking such risks with your art, and how do you relate to those 2 words, bold and polarizing?
Okay, so I think Arc Iris is like a big risk. I think everything we do on stage is a risk and polarizing. The gold leotard to begin with was a polarizing move. I mean, some people are going to look at me and think, oh, she just wants to show off her tits or something. It's definitely not true. Not I don't know. There's, like I said, there are a lot of thoughts that are projected onto all of the strange things that we do, that if you're going to bring judgment to it, you can, and you can decide that, it's being done for the wrong reasons. If you want to, you always can. I think with the Joni Mitchell project, we were fully aware that it was going to be polarizing. And actually, one of my favorite things about that was Zach would post it onto the Joni Mitchell. I'm really bad with social media.
It's
I'm
Facebook
never on
groups?
it. Yeah, the Facebook groups, thanks. And people would respond, and it was hilarious. Like, some people were like so mad about it. And some people were so excited about it. And it was just this, I was like, this is just such a good, clear representation of our, as us as artists. I mean, but at the same time, if you think about it, the best art is going to be polarizing, because if it doesn't cause you to have any sort of reaction, then I don't know, it's just nice. That's not very, is that art or is that design? I don't know.
Oh, that's a good point. I watched a video of you showing off your gear. You had a lot of gear.
Oh, yeah.
And you had this like blue electric guitar, and you were talking about how it was in a weird tuning, and you mentioned that the weird tuning informed a lot of your songwriting.
Yeah, so I played with a lot of different tunings, and then realized immediately that having too many tunings is a real pain when you don't have a guitar tech and you're trying to play songs on stage in a way that is seamless, and you're not like just the one guy up there getting to tune your guitar and talk to the audience. I suppose I could do that, but it's not the way it goes. So I immediately realized, okay, I gotta pick a few. And so I picked 2 alternate tunings that I typically stick in, and the one that the green guitar or teal guitar is in. I've written a lot of songs on it, and a lot of them don't end up on the guitar. They end up, on piano, or I guess that's the alternative, synthesizers, whatever. But I find that the different tunings kind of make you dumb a little bit and can inspire you to find different kinds of harmonies that you wouldn't by just thinking about it. You can kind of like explore. It causes you to explore sound more, like naively or something like that.
Love it. Also in the video you had a ton of gear, and you also it went above my head, far above my head, but you had like so much control over like the keyboard that had like 17 little knobs. And you like knew what each knob was, and you had like 10 different pedals. What's been your history with learning all about all this gear and all these pedals and effects, and how do you feel empowered by your knowledge of that?
I think the last few years, maybe 4 or 5 years, have really been me getting into all that, because the reality is that you don't get your own sound guy when you're at Arc Iris's level most of the time. You have to kind of go with the house person. And so with vocals and stuff, I had all these ideas of what I wanted to sound like, but I couldn't very well have it sound like that live, because if I had a sound guy that came to every show, I could just say, okay, I want reverb here, I want delay here, I want a harmonizer here, I want this, and they would just do it, and it would probably be a quote better processor and whatever. But I've actually started using the pedals when I'm recording into the computer too. So like when I'm recording, I use pedals sometimes for my effects that just print it permanently onto the track, because I like the way they sound, and I think, I don't know, there's something nice about permanence, like just like committing. I have really enjoyed learning about them, and then I think also in terms of arranging or writing the music, when I get together with Zach and Ray, having my pedals opens up a whole nother world, because I can do looping and I can put harmonies on stuff, and I don't know, just it's like a whole nother toolbox that I can use to help create ideas.
So going back to the stage performance of Arc Iris, can you tell me what the tissue box is that you come out of? It's not a tissue box, but it looks like a giant tissue box. And you stick one arm out of the box and you wave your arm around, and then you stick your leg out, and then you like are basically like birthed on stage. Is that maybe what is actually happening?
That's actually what's happening, and it's supposed to look like a vagina. It's just pretty clear, I thought.
Yeah, that is pretty clear. But tell us here on Basic Folk a little bit more about the decision behind that.
Well, I thought that right now we're in a time where we're trying to, as a society, learn how to appreciate women more, and we use penile imagery all the time to express things. And I wanted to celebrate women and use this as like, this is my entrance into your world. This is literally all of our entrances into the world. This is my entrance into your world, and celebrate it and use it as like a tool to celebrate women. Really, that's
awesome. I really like that. I want you to stick around so we can do the lightning round. Will you do that?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back with the lightning round. Basic Folk is brought to you by motivational life coach Janet Forrest, who believes it's never too late to ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? Mention Basic Folk and you'll receive 25% off your first month of coaching when you visit janetforrest.com to get started. Basic Folk receives support from McDean, songwriters who love each other. McDean would be delighted to send you a free CD of their first EP, The Sampler Plate. Email lin@mcdean.co. lin@mcdean.co to get one. Jocie, you ready?
Ready.
For the lightning round. Okay. These are just a series of fun questions. So you
Okay.
can give like 2 or 3 sentence answers or 1-word answers. Here we go. What is your coffee order?
Ooh, I don't drink coffee anymore, but I drink green tea. So, green tea.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Your favorite teacher?
My clarinet teacher in high school and beyond, Julie Vivier. She's so amazing.
Nice. Do you have a dream collaboration?
It's always changing, but right now we're trying to learn a lot about production. So I think right now I would love to collaborate with Pharrell Williams, which seems pretty crazy, but I feel like the huge gap, I feel like there would be so much to learn there.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's make it happen.
Okay.
Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
Beatles.
Yeah, Beatles, yeah. Do you like peanut butter?
Yes.
Do you like smooth or chunky peanut
Chunky.
butter? Okay. Morning person or night owl?
Oh, both.
Do you like the beach or the mountains?
It seems like a weird question, but it's true. Do I like the beach or the mountains? I also both. That's a hard question, too. I'm sorry.
I like both, too. Flying or invisibility?
Flying.
If you were to have a baby, would you do the gender reveal or wait to find out what the gender is?
Wait.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars?
You haven't seen either.
I haven't seen Star Trek, and I like Star Wars, but like my bandmates are way into Star Wars, and in comparison, I look terrible when it comes to Star Wars.
What do you have for breakfast?
Either yogurt and granola or eggs and some sort of greens.
Who's your favorite cat?
Oh, my cat. I have 2 cats. They have to be tied.
Okay, tied.
Aoife.
You've had a couple of ties.
I know. I'm sorry.
Tell me about your cats.
I'm a Gemini. Can't help it. Aoife and Penelope. They're amazing. They look the same. They act different. They're twins. They're perfect.
What's been your favorite interview?
This one.
Thank you. Jocie Adams! You did all right. on the lightning round.
I did so badly on the lightning round. I don't remember anything about physics. Oh my god.
Thank
How
you,
terrible.
Jocie.
Thank you.
Jocie Adams, best laugh in folk music, declaring it right now on Basic Folk. Thanks again for checking us out today. Laura McCarthy produces Basic Folk. Lindsay Myers is our business manager. Our music is by Alex Stanton of the Pittsburgh band Townspeople. I'm Cindy Howes. I host this thing and do a bunch of stuff. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. You're a real rock star, a champion. And if you would leave a review on iTunes, I mean, you're listening all the way at the end of the podcast, you must really love this podcast. So go to iTunes, leave a review. You can check out show notes at cindyhouse.net. You can also sign up for our mailing list there, and there is a new Facebook group called Basic Folk Basics, where we talk about very basic things and also cats. Okay, see you next week. Bye.